I used to think I had control over my life. That I knew the rules, the limits, the boundaries that should never be crossed. But all it took was one moment, one unexpected reaction, to unravel everything I thought I knew. It was late evening, the house dimly lit except for the warm glow of the kitchen light. I stood at the sink, rinsing off the last of the dinner plates, my mind wandering in the familiar comfort of routine. I had always loved the quiet after everyone had gone to bed, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the occasional creak of the wooden floor, the way the house seemed to breathe in the silence. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, steady, deliberate. I turned, expecting to see my mother, but instead, it was him, my stepfather. He leaned against the doorway, his eyes unreadable, his expression calm, but somehow different. Still awake. His voice was low, smooth, carrying an edge of something I couldn't place. I forced a small smile, shaking off the strange feeling creeping up my spine. Yeah, just finishing up. He didn't move. He just stood there, watching me, as if waiting for something. The weight of his gaze made my hands tighten around the dish I was holding, my pulse suddenly aware of itself. You've been quiet lately. I blinked, caught off guard by the statement. I guess I've just been busy. Or maybe you've been avoiding me. The words landed heavily between us. My breath hitched slightly, and for a moment, I couldn't tell if I was imagining the tension in the air or if it had always been there, lingering beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to rise. I let out a soft chuckle, trying to brush off the weight of his words. Why would I be avoiding you? His gaze didn't waver. That's what I'd like to know. Something about the way he said it sent a shiver down my spine. I turned back to the sink, focusing on the water running over my fingers, anything to escape the intensity of his stare. I really should get to bed. Wait. His voice stopped me cold. It wasn't forceful, but it held something that made my body tense. I swallowed, slowly turning my head back toward him. What? For a long moment, he just looked at me, as if he were weighing something, deciding something. The air between us was thick, charged with something I didn't understand. Then, he exhaled a slow, measured breath and took a step forward. I know you've noticed it too. My stomach tightened. Noticed what? He tilted his head slightly, studying me with an expression that sent every nerve in my body on high alert. This, whatever this is. A chill ran through me. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the weight of his words, to deny the truth buried beneath them. There is no this, I said quickly. You're my stepfather. And yet, here we are. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. My heartbeat pounded in my ears as I took an unsteady step back. You should go to bed. He didn't move. Instead, he took another step forward, closing the space between us. Tell me to leave, and I will. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. The moment stretched too long. The tension too sharp. My mind screamed at me to say something, to break whatever was happening before it spiraled out of control, but my body betrayed me, frozen in place, caught between the weight of what was and what could never be. His gaze never wavered. He was waiting. Waiting for me to do what? I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to work. Go. A flicker of something crossed his face. Disappointment? Amusement? I couldn't tell. But then, slowly, he nodded. All right. He stepped back, just far enough to make the tension shift, but not disappear entirely. His eyes lingered on mine for a beat too long before he finally turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, breathless and shaken. The room felt different now. Smaller. Suffocating. I let out a shuddering breath, gripping the edge of the sink as if it could anchor me to reality. My hands were trembling, my heart pounding in a way I didn't understand. I had told him to leave. So why did it feel like something had just begun? I stood there, gripping the sink, my breath shallow, my thoughts a tangled mess. My stepfather had left the room, but the air still felt thick with something unspoken, something that refused to fade. I told him to leave. I should have felt relief. So why did I feel like something had just begun? I turned off the faucet, the sound of dripping water filling the heavy silence. My hands were still trembling, my pulse a steady thrum of uncertainty. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe the tension between us wasn't real, just something my mind had twisted into existence. But deep down, I knew better. I exhaled slowly, rubbing my hands over my face before turning off the kitchen light. I needed sleep, distance, clarity. But the moment I stepped into the hallway, I saw him again. He was standing near the staircase, one hand on the wooden railing, as if he had been waiting. Couldn't sleep? His voice was calm, but I could hear the undercurrent of something deeper. Something I didn't want to name. I hesitated, my fingers tightening around the hem of my shirt. I was just heading to bed. Me too. We stood there, the space between us feeling impossibly small despite the wide hallway. The dim lighting cast shadows along his face, making him unreadable. I swallowed hard, willing my heart to steady itself. Good night. I moved to step past him, but as I did, he shifted, his hand grazing against mine. A spark, fleeting, barely there, but enough to send a rush of something cold and electric down my spine. I should have pulled away. I should have walked faster. But I didn't. Instead, I lingered for just a second too long. And he noticed. Are you afraid of me? The question caught me off guard, stopping me mid-step. I turned to face him, my lips parting slightly in shock. What? You look like you want to run. I let out a breathy laugh, but there was no humor in it. That's ridiculous. Then why aren't you moving? Silence. The kind that pressed in on all sides, leaving no room for escape. I forced myself to take another step, but he moved again, this time blocking my path. I looked up at him, my stomach twisting into knots. This isn't funny. I'm not laughing. His voice was steady, his expression unreadable. He wasn't teasing. He wasn't joking. He was waiting. Waiting for me to do something, to say something that would shatter the fragile moment hanging between us. But I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to fix what had already been broken. Tell me you don't feel it. The words sent a chill down my spine. My hands clenched at my sides. I couldn't answer him. Not truthfully. Not in a way that wouldn't make things worse. So I did the only thing I could. I walked away. I didn't run. I didn't slam the door behind me. But I left. And this time, he let me go. But as I climbed into bed, my heart still racing, my hands still shaking, I knew this wasn't over. Because even in the darkness, with my eyes squeezed shut and my mind willing itself to forget, I could still feel his presence lingering in the air. And I wasn't sure if I wanted it to disappear.